Just hitting at where Patrick was saying, you know, as he started, he gave the slide about the $3 trillion in assets that for ESG companies that are out there. Well, actually, the Carbon Disclosure Project, or as CDP, as TJ mentioned, it represents about $64 trillion worth of assets. And so the investor community is what's really driving this. To give you some context of what 64 trillion, you know, it's a big number, but that's basically the economy of the U.S., the EU, China, Russia, Japan combined. So it's real money that's out there that's forcing it. And there's been study after study, as Patrick was showing as well, that actually one of my colleagues, Tasha Copeland, just did a study that showed that the Dow Jones Sustainability Index is actually outperforming the S&P 500 over the last 11 years. And so using that language, when I go over to Eastern Washington, or if I'm talking to the Association of Washington Businesses, who are very much no new taxes, anti-regulation, and we talk about sustainability or doing the right thing from a corporate social responsibility standpoint, I like to, what I say is I like to outright wing the right wing, and I go in and say, who here cares about the environment, or do you care about shareholder return? And everyone's like, oh, shareholder return, thank God you're not some green guy. And, and I'll say, yeah, you know, gosh darn it, I only care about shareholder return too, and therefore you need to be following these policies that, you know, environment, social, and governance, because an A.T. Kearney study has shown that companies that do that have a market cap of $500 million more than those that don't. They go, well, okay, it's numbers, but it still kind of sounds green. And then you show them the sustainability index outperforming for the last year, and you say, you know what, you're right, I don't give a damn about the environment or society, let's eat polar bears for breakfast, but you know what, look at the financial performance here. You guys don't care about shareholder value. You're not really taking advantage of the maximum amount of money you can make. And that's what really starts cutting into them. And so one of the things that that we've been able to do is, you know, it's talking about how do you make the business case, but what we found is that the reporting aspect of it, whether it's using corporate social responsibility reporting, following the GRI, whether you're reporting in greenhouse gases to the climate registry, to the UK, or to the Carbon Disclosure Project, is that it finds a way of bringing all these various departments together. So the accounting and finance people have skin in the game, and they understand why it matters to them. And as Jim was saying, here's how all of the different other business units, why it matters to them. But we've also found that it really helps tell the story, because more often than not, and I'll just give a couple examples, we had a government lab that does nuclear research and all types of other amazing work to contain nuclear energy waste, I should say, not to make it more. But and they had this amazing. They didn't have a really way that they were telling stories. They had their financials they gave to the Department of Energy, and they had some environmental sheets that people usually do put in. And we helped them pull it all together in an integrated sustainability report. And lo and behold, they had probably 100 more amazing stories than anybody even knew, because they were all siloed in various parts. And they weren't really using it to their shareholders and to their stakeholders. And actually, stakeholders and shareholders are us, but also to the other people. And we took this report and we said, you know, you've really got something here. You know, the Stimulus Act is coming out, and they were really driven. And they said, you know, National Energy Lab in Golden, there's $600 million on the table. And I said, you know what, bring 500 of these, put these in every member of Congress's hands. And you know what, they got the grant, you know, $600 million thing, just because they were able to tell the story. A large financial institution was a client. They were looking for a way that they wanted to show all of the amazing work they were doing in one place, but not just to their customers. They actually wanted to get it into the regulators, into the banking industry, to say, we would like you to start regulating and maybe ease some of these regulations, because we have this compelling social and environmental story, and we're delivering all these major financial benefits to the underserved populations around the country and around the state. And they were able to use just a small, very, you know, tactful integrated report that they were able to use to make that case. And so the idea of, I'm just trying to kind of tailor off what you guys were saying, that if you can pull all this stuff together in a coherent way and show the financials and show the numbers and the stories all in the same place, because everybody looks at things different. The financial people, they can get super geeky about target numbers and financial, and you love it. You go try and tell that to your parents, oh my God, they have no idea what you're talking about. So you have to be able to way to Jim is saying, to take that number, put it into something they care about, and whether that means, you know, showing them the P&L statement or a story as to why they should engage, or why it can bring them more money, or why it can reduce their risk. It's all there, and I think that that's the beauty of kind of pulling it all together, is you have it all in one place, and then you can craft the stories to different parties as needed. So I'm just going to stop there because I want to make sure we have time for Q&A.
So a linguist, an accountant, and a chameleon are here. You know, these are the issues, and I'm sure you have questions about it. So let's do open it up. You know, we've got a little bit of time, but yeah.
So you're talking a lot about having sustainability be equivalent to business goals. Those sustainability efforts could be either in line with those business goals, could be neutral to it, or negative to it. What are you doing that is neutral or negative, or is it all consistent with business goals?
I think it's all consistent, especially considering, you know, the main thing that you're taught at business school, let's be serious, is the finance and accounting, the rock stone of why you're there. And that's about to dramatically change. And it's being driven by the accountants and the auditing firms globally. There's a, you know, basically for non-accountants, and I'll get geeky in finance here, is that, you know, there's a term that the Financial Accounting Standards Board has put out called GAAP, General Accepted Accounting Principles. And that's how you do your financial reporting. Well, there's been an international group called the International Integrated Reporting Council that's trying to pull sustainability criteria into standards. So it's called the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, or SASB. And they're actually releasing, or they did release actually in November of this year, new frameworks, key performance indicators around sustainability. They're trying to actually change the way that corporate reporting is done. So the idea, you do your annual report, your 10K over here, and you do a CSR report, they're saying that's really inefficient and it takes a ton of time. And Suzanne from over here from Deloitte knows that it's almost like you have two separate, you have investor relations working over here and you have your CSR department working, you know, separately. They want to pull it together, and that's where things are really headed. There's the IRRC is going to have 5 key focus areas that are going to be uniformly adopted for future financial reporting, and it's going to be integrated. And so the idea of, you know, is this something that shouldn't be taught, or, you know, is this counter to it? It's almost like, no, this is where the core aspects of business school are going to be. Now, it's going to take, just talking to a colleague who's on the board at the IRC, it's going to take probably another 5 years for adoption fully. But the international framework goes into effect in 2013, and some of the markets that they're looking at, healthcare is actually one of the first ones that's going to be looked at for this new sustainability accounting standard, and that starts in next Friday. And the finance industry starts in February. And if anyone here, since we're here with the Washington Technology Alliance, IT and communications starts in May. So these new frameworks are going to be road tested and start going right away. And so I think, Tom, it's going to be absolutely integrated in the board.
I would say we should also avoid the urge to make decisions, financial decisions, in isolation. And unfortunately, with a lot of siloed companies, that's what we see is they only see a negative return because they're not necessarily looking at the ramifications of those decisions across the business. Green building is a great example of that, where when we first were talking about this issue internally at Starbucks, you know, the operators were able to demonstrate and project a significant reduction in their operating costs, but it also came at a slight increase in the cost of building our stores. And if we're looking at a 2% increase in the store construction cost to save 10% operations cost, if those two sides aren't communicating, then all you really see is the store construction, the store development team saying, I don't want to take this on because it's going to cost me money. But once you're able to actually eliminate that isolation of the financial conversation, it really helps. I think smooth some of those bugs out. And then also it's the harder aspect, but equally as important, is to be able to try to quantify the qualitative. And that's often very difficult to do. How do you measure brand love? How do you measure customer loyalty? How do you measure, for us, you know, we look at climate change as a risk to the agricultural product called coffee, and if we project out into the future and start to see declines in coffee production, we we can't yet quantify that. But do we therefore not make the investments into something that we